I turned this into this. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. Who doesn't love to drink a little whiskey and get totally hammered before 8 a.m.? Well, this guy, that's who. So I took a perfectly good bottle of Basil Hayden's, and primarily because I had another bottle of Basil Hayden's, a very good, delicious, affordable whiskey. And one of the things that I wanted to do was oak the living bejeebies out of it, because I like making old fashioned, and I will usually use Basil Hayden's to do it because it's not that expensive. And I usually don't like to use a really rich, deep, delicious, smoky, oaky, expensive whiskey to do that. But I thought, you know what? If I took that Basil Hayden's and oaked the living crap out of it so that when I do use it to make my old fashions, would it be better? Because I love my old fashions to be rich and bold, to have the taste of smoke and charcoal just filling my nostrils and my body. I want to come out of this thing smelling like a Kingsford briquette. And so what I did here is I took a 1 liter jar and I put the whole 750 milliliters in here. And if you're good at math, that means I'll have a little extra room in there. And then what you can't see is I took 4 of those toasted oak spirals. You can see one of them kind of right there, huh? And because they were kind of long, I had to break them in half and jam them in there. So I actually have 8 spirals in here. They are a medium toast white oak. So that's what I used. And if I used like a heavy toast, this would even be darker. But what I want to show you here is this is an absolutely super bright room, and I can really not see through there. It is like as dark as red wine, if not darker. And so I have not opened this up yet. I will tell you that I have these 4, really kind of 8 half spirals in here now for 6 weeks. So this is the 6th week I've had it. It's just been sitting in my liquor cabinet getting dark and red like this. And so the next thing I want to do is actually strain it, filter it out, make sure I get all that wood and the particulate out of it, and then just taste it and see what we have, because there is a very good chance that it's totally undrinkable. But if it is oaky and smoky, it should be okie dokie to use in old fashioned. So we'll try that. All right, I'm going to filter this, and then we're going to start drinking it. All right, so I have filtered the whiskey here. I actually did it through a coffee filter, and it got a lot of particulate out of it. In fact, there were a couple big pieces of wood that it filtered out too, but got those all out. So now I've got clear, unadulterated oaked whiskey here. Now, a couple things I want to say is that when I first put in those spirals, those wood spirals, they floated as wood will in liquid. But after a couple days, I noticed that they must have gotten completely waterlogged. And so they actually sunk to the bottom. So by the 2nd or 3rd day, they were sitting on the bottom, which is a good sign that they are completely soaked, that the whiskey is working its way through the wood, and all of that goodness of the wood is seeping out and releasing into the whiskey. Now, one thing I want to show you here is that this looks very dark. It has a little bit of a red tinge to it. So if I were just to lift this up and look at it, I would probably say, oh, is that a red wine? Because there's some of that, but there's just a little bit of like a caramel color in some of those areas, which a red wine usually will not have. But as you can see here, it is very dark. Despite the fact that it is very bright in here, it is quite dark. So what does this taste like, and maybe even smell like? Now, I've gotten a little whiff of this when I was filtering it already, and I will tell you, it has a very strong odor, and not in a bad way by any means. I mean, it's just, dude, I can smell it. There is that alcohol smell, but I'll tell you what, there is like a really strong raisin date smell. It doesn't smell exactly like either, but just has like that dried fruit smell. Golly, it does smell good though. All right, so let's give this a try here. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. It opens you up a little bit. I'm not sure what the proof on this is. 40% alcohol. So 80 proof normally, and my assumption is it would be about the same. Since I did it in a mason jar, I'm not losing anything to evaporation like you would in a wood barrel, but my goodness, that is so smooth. One of the things that I was worried about is it being so dark, maybe it wouldn't even taste like whiskey anymore, but I mean, it still has the heat of the alcohol. You taste that on the back end, but oh my gosh, it is so smooth. There's like no bitterness. It's almost a little creamy and subdued on the front end, kind of buttery, almost a little oily. I mean, it just is really, really smooth. It's not like overly smoky. I guess I kind of figured I would smell like some charcoal or burnt wood to it, but it's just, like I said, more of like a raisin or date smell and taste to it. Yeah, almost a little citrusy, maybe just like a hint of orange, a little appleish, but one of the things that I will probably say, if I were describing this in a very succinct way to my friend, is that it's like a delicious, sugary, caramelly raisin of a whiskey. But I tell you what, this is going to make one hell of an old fashioned. So if you want an oak whiskey, I was a little worried about how long I was doing it. 6 weeks with like 4 spirals is a long time. And, once a week I would just go check on it. I wasn't shaking it up, but just agitated a little bit to see how it was coming. But I was worried just because of how dark and opaque it was getting. But oh my gosh, that is pretty freaking smooth. So if you want to take maybe a mediocre whiskey at home and turn it into something fantastic, or maybe even a pretty good whiskey and turn it into something even better, dude, it's a pretty easy thing to do. All you need is a mason jar and a couple of those oaking spirals. So I will put a link to all of those in the description below. Peter Von Panda, out. That's the stuff.